How's it going, Eliminators? Today I'm going to be showing you how to test a riding lawnmower key switch. So let's get right into it. So let's say you turn the key on your riding lawnmower, but the engine doesn't turn over. One of the possibilities is a bad key switch, and I'm going to show you how to test that. Now, to test your key switch, you're going to need a multimeter. I have two here, and I'm going to be using this one for the purpose of this video, and I'll explain that in a second. But coming over to your multimeter, we're going to be testing continuity. And what a multimeter will do while we're checking continuity is essentially just make sure that the circuit is good in between the two connectors that we're testing. So as you can see, we've put our multimeter to the continuity symbol right there, and there is no continuity at the moment, and that's because our connectors are disconnected. If I come over here and I touch these two alligator clips, you're going to notice that we started out at about 180 and we've gone down to 0. And that means that there is continuity and there is hardly any resistance. Now, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be using this tester here, and that's because this tester has this little symbol right here, which means that it's going to make noise when both the leads are connected. So we're just going to switch it over here. So it'll make it easier for you guys to tell when there is continuity and when there isn't continuity in the video. So I have in front of me your average run-of-the-mill riding lawnmower key switch here. Now, this key switch, you're going to notice, has 5 connectors on the back. There's 4 on the bottom and then there's 1 on the top. This is what I call a 5-prong key switch. Now, you may end up having a 6 or even a 7-prong key switch. I know that a lot of the zero-turn models have the 7-prong key switch, but for the most part, you're going to have the same connectors that we have on a 5-prong one. Now, you're going to notice that on this key switch, we have letters. Now, a lot of times they're going to be stamped onto the actual prong itself. You're going to see there that's a G, and if we spin this around, you're going to see there's an S. So I'm going to take you through quickly what they mean, and I'll even put a diagram up on the screen to the right so it'll help explain. So first off, you're going to have your G, which is going to be your ground. So that's going to go directly to the frame. We're going to have the B up here. That's going to go to your battery. So that's supplying 12 volts to the key switch at all times. Coming over to S, you're going to have your solenoid plug. That doesn't mean starter, that means solenoid. And then up here to your M, that is going to be your magneto and also your coil. And then last but not least, your L, sometimes it'll say A for auxiliary or L for lights. And you're going to notice that the diagram on the right shows you that there's basically going to be 3 positions this key switch is going to be in, and we're going to be testing all 3 of them to make sure that this key switch is in fact a good key switch. So what we're going to test first is going to be the start position. There's no need to test anything else, because if you go to turn your key on your key switch and your engine doesn't turn over, then it could be a bad start position on your key switch. So we're going to test that first. So in order for your engine to turn over, the solenoid needs to send power to the starter. And in order for the solenoid to click, it needs 12 volts from the battery. So what we're going to do is we're going to hook up a multimeter from B to S, and we're going to come over here and turn the key into the spring-loaded starting position. And then we're going to go ahead and turn the key switch into the spring-loaded starter position, and you should hear a beep. Hear that? So the starter circuit on this key switch works. Now, something very interesting happens on this key switch. You'll notice that when I turn to the spring-loaded starter position, it beeps. Now watch what happens if I turn it farther. It completely stops and shorts the circuit. So this key switch still works. However, if this was installed in a riding lawnmower and I turned the key as hard as I could, the engine actually wouldn't turn over. I'd have to kind of let off on it a bit for the switch to engage. Now, the next test we're going to be performing is checking the connection on the run circuit. And that's going to be between the B and the L, or sometimes it'll say A for auxiliary. And with the key switch in the middle run position, so this is off, that's the run, and then that's the spring-loaded start. So we're going to be in the run position. We're simply testing for continuity. Now you can hear we're getting a very weak connection here, and that could be because this terminal is a little loose. So what I'm going to do is go directly to the little copper plug that they use. There we go. So we do have a connection between the B and L on the run position, but it is kind of weak and intermittent. Now you can perform another test, and this is one that a technician would do, and normally I would probably do this first, but you're going to want to find your G connector, and that's your ground. And then what we're going to do is simply take our leads and we're going to go around to every plug and we're just going to listen for noise. And we can hear that we don't have anything, which means that there is not a short from the ground to any of these other plugs in the run position, which means that if the circuit between B and L was good, there is nothing else that's going to interfere with that circuit. And now that we're connected to the G plug, what you're going to want to do is take your lead from G and touch it to the base of the key switch, and you should hear a sound. So essentially what we've done is we've tested to make sure that there's a ground between the base of the key switch and the ground plug itself, and we've checked to make sure that there isn't a short to ground on any of the connectors. And next up, we're going to be testing the off position of the key switch. So when you turn your key to the off position, what it's doing is it's going to connect G to your M, and your M also is on your coil. So that's the kill wire on your coil. So basically we're going to want to hear a noise from G to M when the key is in the off position. We already know that there is not a short to ground between that in the run position. If there was, your engine would crank over most likely, but it would never start because it would never produce spark, and that's because you would be grounding out your coil, preventing it from sparking. So we're going to come here and hook up the G, and then we're going to come over here and hook up the M, and you guys can hear that we are getting bad connections. However, there is a connection there, and this plug is pretty much perfect for this test because you're going to run into these issues as the switch gets older. Water gets in them because normally your switch is mounted kind of like this on your riding mower dash, or it could be like this vertical. So all that water is going to go into the switch. It's going to make its way down into the electrical side of it, and there's just going to be a little bit of corrosion, a little bit of resistance, and you're going to find these issues that the switch may still work, but it may be kind of intermittent, similar to when we went into the third spring-loaded starter position. If we went into it lightly, it worked just fine, but if we went too hard, it didn't work. So this switch is pretty much garbage. The key, on the other hand, is good, and so is this little lock nut. So I'll probably end up scrapping this now that the video is complete. But like I said, this key switch is going straight into my scrap bin because I don't want to have something like this laying around my shop where I could inadvertently put it into a machine to test something. There could be a problem, and I think it's a good switch, so I start looking elsewhere. That would create a lot more unnecessary work for myself. So right into the scrap bin it goes. Well, that's it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed the video, think about leaving me a thumbs up. You know, it really helps me out. You can click here to subscribe and click over here to watch one of my previous videos. I upload every single week, so be sure to stop on by next week, check the channel out for new content, and as always guys, thanks for watching.